The motion tracker didn't beep. It screamed. Elias Mercer froze mid-step, breath fogging inside his cracked helmet visor as the blizzard howled across the ruined valley. The battlefield had been dead for 12 hours. Scorched metal. Frozen bodies. Burnt-out walkers half buried in snow. Nothing should still be alive. The tracker screamed again. 3 meters. Then 2. Elias slowly turned. There, beneath the shattered hull of an alien dropship, something moved. Small. Too small to be a soldier. He tightened his grip on his plasma cutter and approached carefully, boots crunching through ice layered with ash. Wind lashed against him. Lightning flickered across the storm-choked sky. The dropship groaned as he shoved twisted plating aside. And then he saw it. Curled into itself. Shivering. Bleeding. A hatchling. It wasn't human. Its skin shimmered faintly like fractured crystal. 4 delicate limbs folded protectively around its core. A thin membrane fluttered weakly along its back, torn by shrapnel. Its eyes opened. Large. Luminous. Not feral. Afraid. Elias swallowed. "This is not my problem," he muttered into the storm. Command had already issued recall. Salvage only. No survivors. No entanglements. The alien faction that owned this dropship had declared open war on humanity 3 months ago. This thing would grow up to fight. The hatchling tried to move. It failed. A faint sound escaped it, not a roar. Not a hiss. A whimper. Something in Elias's chest tightened. Damn it. The wind shifted. And for the first time, he felt it. He wasn't alone. The storm had a rhythm. A pattern. But behind it, something heavier moved. Something large enough that even the blizzard bent around it. Elias didn't look. Didn't dare. Slowly, carefully, he crouched and removed one thermal glove. The air burned instantly against his skin. The hatchling flinched, then stilled. He placed his hand against its side. Warm. Barely. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're not dying today." The tracker flickered again. Not in front of him. Behind him. 20 meters. Massive life sign. Cold-blooded. Ancient. The hatchling's eyes shifted past Elias's shoulder. Recognition flashed through them. Not fear. Not exactly. Elias felt the weight of something watching him. Judging him. The wind parted briefly, and he saw it. A silhouette in the storm. Towering. Elegant. Not a beast. Not an animal. Too still. Too controlled. 2 vast wings folded behind a tall armored form. Horned crown sweeping back from a regal skull. Eyes like molten gold burning through the white chaos. The figure did not move forward. Did not attack. It simply watched. Elias's heart pounded against his ribs so hard it hurt. "Great," he muttered softly. "So you're the parent." The silhouette's head tilted slightly. The hatchling whimpered again, weaker now. Elias looked down at the bleeding wound along its side. If he walked away, the storm would finish what the war started. If he stayed. The tracker pinged again. Orbiting ships. Enemy. Returning to confirm kills. Elias made a decision. Fine, he exhaled. He removed his insulated jacket and wrapped the hatchling inside it, ignoring the sharp edges along its limbs that sliced lightly into his forearms. The massive silhouette in the storm tensed. Elias stood slowly, cradling the fragile alien against his chest. "If you're going to kill me," he said under his breath, "do it now." The wind died. For a single impossible second, the storm around them stilled completely. The towering figure stepped closer, not fully into view, but enough. Close enough that Elias could see the intricate plating along her body. The ceremonial markings etched into chitin and bone. The sheer scale of restrained power coiled beneath her stance. She could tear him apart before his brain registered pain. Instead, she stepped aside, clearing a path through the snow. Elias blinked. "You're letting me go?" The golden eyes locked onto his. Not threat. Not gratitude. Assessment. The storm resumed. The figure faded back into the white curtain. But Elias could still feel her presence moving parallel to him as he began the long trek toward the canyon ridge. Not hunting. Not retreating. Walking beside him. Above them, distant engines roared through the clouds. Enemy ships descending. Elias tightened his grip around the hatchling as it weakly clutched at his shirt. "Hold on," he whispered. "We're not done yet." Behind him, something vast unfurled its wings. And the storm began to change. "If you'd like, I can now write. Part 2, The Shadow That Walked, full 600 to 800 words. Or create a cinematic thumbnail concept with dramatic positioning of the queen's silhouette behind him fire. The storm should have buried them by now. Elias knew that. Visibility had dropped to less than 5 meters. Winds tore across the valley hard enough to stagger him sideways. Ice needles sliced against exposed skin. His thermal layer was gone, wrapped around the fragile alien child in his arms. And yet, the snow never fully touched them. It swirled. It curved. It bent around an invisible corridor stretching 20 meters ahead. Elias noticed it after the 3rd kilometer. This isn't normal, he muttered through chattering teeth. The hatchling shifted weakly against his chest. Its crystalline skin dimmed and brightened in faint pulses, like a failing heartbeat translated into light. Blood loss was still a problem. He ducked behind a fractured tank hull and checked the wound. Shrapnel fragment. Embedded deep. Okay, he breathed. Stay with me. The hatchling's small clawed hand wrapped around his finger. Tight. Stronger than before. Elias froze. It wasn't just reflex. It was deliberate. He felt eyes on him again. Not ahead. Behind. To the right. Always just outside direct sight. The motion tracker flickered constantly now. Massive life form. Pacing them. Distance, steady. It wasn't stalking. It was escorting. A low tremor rolled through the snowfield. Elias snapped upright, scanning. 3 heat signatures approaching fast. Predators. Scavenger beasts drawn to the scent of blood. Of course, he muttered. The creatures burst through the storm moments later, 6-limbed, armored, all teeth and hunger. One let out a screech and lunged straight at Elias. He braced. But before it reached him, the sound came. A single, resonant vibration. Not loud. Not explosive. Authoritative. The predator stopped mid-leap. Something massive landed between them. Snow detonated outward in a blinding wave. For half a heartbeat, Elias saw her clearly. The towering figure unfolded to full height, wings partially spread, armored plating gleaming beneath layers of frost. The horned crown framing her head cut a silhouette straight from myth. She did not roar. She did not thrash. She simply stepped forward. The predators whimpered. One tried to flee. It never made it 2 steps. The queen moved once, too fast to track, and the creature collapsed into the snow, lifeless. The others scattered into the storm, desperate to escape. Silence returned. Elias exhaled shakily. Yeah, he whispered. Definitely the parent. The queen turned her head slightly toward him. Her eyes weren't wild. They weren't furious. They were calculating. The hatchling made a faint chirping sound and stretched a weak limb toward her. Something shifted in the queen's posture. Not aggression. Concern. Elias swallowed. She's losing blood, he said, surprising himself by speaking aloud. If you want her alive, we need shelter. The queen's gaze held his for a long moment. Then, she stepped aside again. But this time, she didn't vanish. She walked. Parallel. Massive strides matching his pace through the blizzard. Not hiding. Not threatening. Guarding. Above them, engines roared louder. Enemy warships cut through the cloud cover, searching with scanning beams. The queen glanced upward. Her wings flexed slightly. Elias saw the calculation in her eyes. She could take to the sky. Fight. Tear ships apart if needed. But she didn't. Because of the hatchling. Because of him. You're choosing restraint, Elias murmured. A canyon ridge emerged ahead through the snow curtain, fractured rock formations forming a narrow crevice. Shelter. If they could reach it. A scanning beam swept dangerously close. Elias ducked instinctively. The queen reacted instantly. She stepped in front of him. Her enormous frame shielded both human and child from the descending scan. The beam passed over her armored body, and for a second, Elias expected weapons fire. Nothing came. The ships continued past. Either they didn't recognize her silhouette, or they feared it. The beam faded. The queen lowered her wings slowly. Elias stared at her towering presence, snow collecting along the edges of her plating. You could have left, he said quietly. You don't know me. Her gaze shifted to the hatchling wrapped in his jacket. Then back to him. Recognition. Understanding. Not trust. But acknowledgement. The hatchling made a faint sound again, pressing closer against Elias's chest. And for the first time, the queen stepped closer than before. Close enough that Elias could see the fine details etched into her armor. Ancient symbols carved along her chitin. Not battle markings. Royal markings. This wasn't just a parent. This was a ruler. Elias felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. "You're not just protecting her," he whispered. "You are her." The queen's golden eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger. In approval. The canyon entrance loomed ahead. Shelter was meters away. But as Elias stepped toward it, the tracker screamed again. Multiple signals. Not predators. Not ships. Ground troops. Closing fast. The queen's wings slowly unfolded to full span. The temperature in the air seemed to drop. Snow crystallized midair. Elias tightened his hold on the hatchling. "Okay," he breathed. "Now we're in trouble." The queen stepped forward. And this time, she did not hide her power. The ground troops broke through the storm like phantoms. 6 of them. Tall. Armored. Armed with plasma lances glowing white-hot in the snow. They fanned out instantly, disciplined, precise. Their leader lifted a scanning device, and it shrieked. Royal biosignature detected. Alive. The soldier's head snapped up. Then he saw her. The queen did not retreat. She stepped fully into view. No more shadows. No more concealment. She unfolded to her full height, towering over the canyon entrance like something carved from war and winter itself. Her wings spread wide, their edges slicing through the falling snow. Intricate armor plated her body, not crude protection, but ceremonial and ancient. Etched across her chitin were glowing sigils pulsing faintly gold. Authority. Lineage. Dominion. The ground troops froze. One of them whispered something over comms. Impossible. Elias stood behind her, clutching the hatchling tightly. The child stirred weakly in his jacket. A faint glow rippled along its skin. The scanning device shrieked louder. Royal air confirmed. The soldiers understood. They hadn't wiped out the bloodline. They had failed. The leader raised his plasma lance. Terminate both. Elias felt the queen shift. Not panic. Not rage. Calculation. If she launched forward at full strength, the canyon walls would collapse. Elias and the hatchling would be crushed in the shockwave. She couldn't fight freely. Because of him. The first soldier fired. The blast streaked toward Elias. It never reached him. The queen moved once. Her wings snapped forward, and the plasma bolt struck it. The energy dispersed across her armored plating in a cascade of golden light. She didn't even flinch. The second soldier fired. Then the third. 3 streaks of burning white energy converged. The queen stepped forward. And roared. It wasn't a wild sound. It wasn't rage. It was command. The air fractured. Snow exploded outward in a circular shockwave that knocked every soldier off their feet. Plasma lances skidded across the ice. Elias dropped to one knee but kept the hatchling shielded. When he looked up, the queen was walking toward them. Slowly. Each step deliberate. The soldiers scrambled to recover their weapons. One tried to run. She was faster. One heartbeat she stood 10 meters away. The next. She was there. Her clawed hand closed around the fleeing soldier's armor and lifted him effortlessly into the air. She didn't tear him apart. Didn't crush him. She simply held him. Her golden eyes burned inches from his visor. And then. She spoke. Not in sound. In resonance. The canyon walls vibrated with it. The soldier's armor flickered. Systems glitched. Weapons powered down instantly. The soldier in her grasp convulsed. Then went limp. Unconscious. Not dead. The rest dropped their weapons. The leader backed away slowly. Fear. Pure and absolute. Elias watched in stunned silence. She's not killing them, he breathed. The queen turned her head slightly toward him. Her gaze locked onto his. For the first time, he saw it clearly. She was choosing restraint. For the hatchling. For him. She released the unconscious soldier into the snow. The remaining troops fled without orders. Their fear carried into the storm. Silence returned. Only wind. Only breath. The queen folded her wings slowly. Then she turned toward Elias. No soldiers. No enemies. Just the 3 of them. She stepped closer. Close enough that Elias could feel the warmth radiating from her armored body. Close enough that he could see the fine fractures in her plating, battle damage. She wasn't unscathed. She had been fighting. 4 days. The hatchling stirred. Its eyes opened fully for the first time. Bright. Clear. It reached a small clawed limb toward the queen. The queen lowered herself. Not fully kneeling. But lowering. Her massive head bowed until it hovered inches from the child. A soft vibration passed between them. Not speech. Recognition. Bond. Elias felt like an intruder witnessing something sacred. The hatchling chirped faintly, stronger now. Alive. The Queen's eyes lifted slowly to Elias again. Assessment. Not threat. Not gratitude. Something deeper. Understanding. He had shielded her heir. At cost to himself. He had not fled. He had not tried to bargain. He had simply carried the child. Snow drifted softly around them now. The storm had weakened. Elias swallowed. So, he said quietly, you're not just the parent. The Queen rose to full height once more. Behind her, clouds split briefly, and through the opening, orbiting ships became visible. Enemy warships adjusting position. Recalibrating. They had seen the ground skirmish. They knew she was alive. They would not retreat again. The Queen looked to the sky. Then back to Elias. A decision forming. She could fly. She could fight. But not while the hatchling was weak. Not while he was exposed. Elias tightened his grip. I'm not leaving her. The Queen's gaze held his for several long seconds. Then, she stepped aside from the canyon entrance. Creating space. Not blocking him. Inviting him forward. Inside the canyon lay deeper shelter. A place to stabilize the child. And perhaps something more. Elias hesitated only a moment before stepping toward it. The Queen followed. Not above. Not behind. Beside him. Above the clouds, enemy warships began descending. And this time, they were not coming cautiously. They were coming to finish it. The canyon trembled before the ships were even visible. Elias felt it through the stone beneath his boots, a low vibration rolling down from orbit like distant thunder. They had seen. They had confirmed. And now they were coming in force. Inside the canyon's deeper chamber, the wind finally died. Jagged rock walls curved inward, forming a natural shield from aerial scans. Pale bioluminescent moss clung to the stone, casting faint silver light across the chamber floor. Elias knelt carefully and laid the hatchling down on his folded pack. She's stable, he muttered, checking the wound again. But not for long. The Queen stood at the entrance to the chamber. Not guarding. Listening. Above the clouds, engines roared louder. The hatchling's glow flickered unevenly now, not from fear, but strain. Elias swallowed hard. If they glass this canyon, he said quietly, we're finished. The Queen's wings shifted slightly. She knew. She could launch into the sky. Tear through warships. Rip engines from hulls. But not without exposing the canyon. Not without risking shockwaves collapsing the shelter. Not without leaving the hatchling vulnerable. She was powerful. But she was constrained. By love. By lineage. By him. A beam of white light sliced through the canyon mouth. Scanning. More followed. Targeting patterns tightened. Weapons charging. Elias exhaled slowly. Okay, he whispered to himself. He reached to his belt and pulled free a compact device, scratched, dented, civilian grade. A salvage beacon. Long range. Military encrypted. He had never intended to use it. Salvage scouts were not soldiers. They were not worth retrieval fleets. He activated it anyway. Signal burst launched skyward. Above the storm layer, enemy ships shifted formation immediately. They had detected it. One vessel broke from orbit. Descending. Weapons glowing. The canyon shook violently as the first plasma strike slammed into the outer ridge. Rock exploded inward. Dust rained from the ceiling. The hatchling cried out sharply. Elias shielded it instinctively. The Queen's eyes ignited. Her wings unfurled to full span. The temperature in the chamber dropped instantly. Another plasma bolt tore through the canyon wall, closer this time. The Queen stepped forward. Enough. She launched. The sound wasn't thunder. It was displacement. Air collapsed beneath her wings as she burst from the canyon in a column of snow and shattered stone. Elias stumbled to the entrance in time to see her ascend through the storm, a streak of gold against white chaos. The descending warship locked onto her immediately. Weapons fired. The sky lit up. Plasma streaks converged on her silhouette. She did not dodge. She flew straight through them. Energy detonated across her armor in brilliant cascades of light. Then she hit the first ship. The collision cracked the clouds apart. The vessel's shield flared, then shattered like glass. She tore through the hull. Not wildly. Not savagely. Surgically. Engines ruptured. The warship spiraled, crippled. But 3 more ships descended behind it. Elias felt his stomach drop. She can't take all of them, he breathed. A new vibration rolled across the sky. Different. Lower frequency. Familiar. The enemy ships hesitated. Scanning systems flickered. And then, space bent. Just slightly. Above the battlefield, a single human cruiser emerged from warp. It wasn't massive. It wasn't theatrical. It was precise. Matte black hull. Clean lines. No glowing excess. Designation burned faintly along its side. TCS Aegis Dawn. The enemy fleet reacted instantly. Weapons redirected. Target lock acquired. The human cruiser did not fire. Instead, a silent pulse expanded outward from its hull. Invisible. Controlled. Every enemy ship's weapons grid shut down simultaneously. Shields flickered, then failed. Engines stuttered. Targeting arrays went dark. Complete systems paralysis. Elias stared upward in disbelief. The Queen hovered midair, wings spread, golden eyes fixed on the frozen fleet. The human cruiser's comm frequency opened. Calm. Measured. Unhurried. You attacked a human citizen during a recovery operation, the voice said evenly. You targeted a protected juvenile. You fired on a sovereign-class entity. Pause. You have made a sequence of poor decisions. The crippled warship tumbled downward, burning. The remaining vessels drifted helplessly. The Queen slowly descended, landing atop the canyon ridge like a living monument. Her gaze shifted from the immobilized fleet to the human cruiser. Assessment. Recognition. The cruiser's voice continued. We are not here to conquer. We are here to correct. A second pulse radiated outward. Enemy navigation systems rebooted, but weapons remained offline. An unmistakable message. Leave. Now. The fleet retreated without resistance. They did not attempt retaliation. They did not attempt pride. They fled. The sky grew quiet again. The human cruiser maintained position briefly. Then a smaller shuttle detached and descended toward the canyon. Elias stepped back into the chamber as the Queen returned to the entrance. This time she did not hide her power. But she did not raise it against the arriving human craft either. The shuttle landed softly inside the canyon. Boarding ramp lowered. 3 human officers stepped out, weapons lowered but ready. They took in the sight immediately. Elias, the hatchling, and the Queen towering protectively nearby. One officer exhaled softly. Mercer, he said, almost incredulous. You always did find trouble. Elias gave a tired half-smile. Yeah, he muttered. This one found me first. The officer looked up at the Queen. She did not move. Did not threaten. But her presence filled the canyon like gravity itself. The officer spoke calmly. We will not harm the child. Silence. The Queen's golden eyes shifted to Elias. Decision deferred to him. Elias swallowed. They're here to help, he said quietly. Long seconds passed. Then, the Queen stepped aside, allowing the humans forward. Not as conquerors. Not as superiors. As allies. Outside the canyon, the last of the enemy ships vanished into warp. And for the first time since the battle began, the storm fully cleared. The storm never returned. By the time the medical unit stabilized the hatchling, the sky above the canyon had cleared into something almost peaceful. Thin light spilled across broken stone and melted snow. Elias sat against the canyon wall, exhaustion finally claiming him. Across from him, the Queen watched. Not pacing. Not looming. Watching. The human medtech stepped back carefully. She'll live, he said quietly. Internal repair gel is holding. Regeneration's kicking in. Elias exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Good. The hatchling stirred weakly, crystalline skin glowing steadier now. Its small claw flexed once, searching. Elias reached forward instinctively. It gripped his finger. Stronger this time. The Queen stepped closer. Not with intimidation. With gravity. She lowered herself slowly, wings folding inward. The canyon floor seemed smaller around her now, as if reality adjusted to her presence. Her golden eyes studied the medical equipment. The human uniforms. The shuttle. Then they settled on Elias. Long silent. Unblinking. The commanding officer stepped forward carefully, keeping his posture neutral. You are sovereign, he said calmly, addressing her. We recognize that. The Queen did not respond in sound. But the air vibrated faintly. A low resonance filled the canyon, not speech, but intent. The officers stiffened slightly as their comm implants flickered. Translation algorithms scrambled to interpret the frequency. And then, a voice. Not heard. Understood. You carried my blood when you did not have to. Elias blinked. He wasn't sure whether the words were translated, or placed directly into thought. He swallowed. She would have died, he said quietly. That's reason enough. The Queen's gaze sharpened. You were ordered to leave. It wasn't accusation. It was observation. Elias gave a tired half-smile. Yeah. Well. Orders don't always account for kids. The hatchling chirped softly and tugged his finger again. The Queen looked down at her heir. Something ancient moved behind her eyes. Relief. Not weakness. Relief earned. The officer cleared his throat gently. Your enemies will regroup. They now know the heir survives. The Queen rose to full height again. The canyon darkened under her shadow. They will not attack again. There was no arrogance in the statement. Only certainty. The human cruiser still hovered in high atmosphere, silent, waiting. The Queen turned toward Elias once more. Slowly, deliberately, she extended one massive clawed hand. Resting it gently against the canyon floor before him. The etched sigils along her armor ignited faintly. Symbols began to form in the air between them, luminous, shifting. Treaty glyphs. Recognition marks. Ancient royal contract. The officer's eyes widened. She's offering formal alliance. Elias stared at the glowing symbols. Protection. Shared defense. Trade. Technological exchange. Recognition of humanity as protector species. He shook his head slightly. I didn't do this for that. The Queen's gaze did not waver. Intent does not erase consequence. The canyon felt very small now. The galaxy even smaller. The hatchling released his finger, then reached toward the Queen. The Queen gently lifted the child into her grasp. For the first time, Elias saw the full-scale difference between them. Immense sovereign. Fragile heir. Both watching him. Elias stood slowly. I don't need wealth. Or status, he said. Just make sure she survives. Silence stretched. Then. The Queen lowered her head. Not fully. But enough. A bow. Not to a ruler. Not to a superior. To a human. The officers froze. The medtech whispered under his breath. History was shifting. Above them, the human cruiser systems quietly recorded everything. The Queen's voice resonated once more. Humanity protects what it chooses. So do we. The glowing glyphs expanded, not binding. Not demanding. An acknowledgement. A pact born not from conquest, but from mercy. The Queen turned toward the canyon mouth. Her wings unfurled slowly, sunlight catching along their edges. Before she launched, she looked back one final time. Not at the officers. Not at the shuttle. At Elias. The galaxy fears power. It will learn to respect compassion. Then she ascended. A column of gold rising into open sky. No warships followed. No weapons fired. The air lived. The bloodline survived. And every faction that had witnessed the engagement received the same silent transmission from the human cruiser hours later. Incident classification updated. Humanity, strategic tier civilization. Engagement protocol, do not threaten protected juveniles. Advisory, humans do not require authority to act. Days later, as Elias prepared to redeploy, he stood once more at the edge of Earth's orbital dock. No parade. No ceremony. Just reassignment orders. He preferred it that way. One of the officers approached him quietly. You realize, the officer said, you changed galactic policy. Elias shrugged. I carried a kid through a storm. The officer smiled faintly. Exactly. Far beyond Earth's orbit, in a distant system once scorched by war, a young heir opened luminous eyes, stronger now. And beside her, a queen watched the stars. Human ships would always have safe passage there. Not because of fear. But because of a choice made in the snow.